Moving away from East Africa, let's go to the West. Burkina Faso officials say that a minibus has hit a landmine in Burkina Faso in West Africa, killing at least 10 people. The blast, which occurred in the east near the border with Niger on Christmas Day, saw at least 5 other persons wounded and needing immediate attention. The governor of the Fada N'Gourma region said the death toll could rise as some passengers were still missing.
Burkina Faso and its neighbors have faced jihadist insurgency since 2013. The crisis has killed thousands of people and displaced more than 2 million. The incident comes after an explosive device killed 2 soldiers on a road in northern Burkina Faso on Saturday, according to a security source. Now, it's important to mention that the head of Burkina Faso's ruling military junta, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, has made recapturing jihadist-held territory a priority. Now, French troops have also been trying to help the region's armies tackle militants since 2013.
Of course, sometime in August, French troops did withdraw from Mali after a diplomatic fallout with the country's military rulers. However, they remain in other Sahel countries, and we've also shared with you a couple of times where there have been some level of protest, by citizens of Francophone Africa asking that France leaves their country, and so you can't really take away the. It might be hard to accept, but every now and then we like to question where these insurgencies come from. Where do these disruptions come from? Who's behind some of all these, issues? And
yes.
You also at the same time cannot point, accusing fingers at anybody or at any country, in particular, because
they have pointed accusing fingers, right?
Yes.
They pointed accusing fingers at Russia, and they pointed accusing fingers at France.
So the thing is, so there's always been in world politics, right? There's always been the battle of influence between the Soviets, between the West, between Russia, France, the United States, and the West generally. And I've always said it, that every now and then when you see a crisis brewing in one country somewhere in the world, that you do not necessarily understand why. A lot of times it's not because the people there just decide that they are tired of their governor or their leadership. It is because somebody somewhere is, funding.
Puppet master.
Exactly, funding a little crisis here and there. So it's very likely the same things that are playing out in Africa. Russia has tried to exert its own sphere of influence across, certain Francophone states. France, of course, has been there forever and ever and ever, even after they supposedly granted these countries their freedom. They've not let go. And so these insurgencies aren't, and I would always argue that they aren't necessarily because some people would have access to weapons and decide that they want to just be chaotic.
And sometimes it's not religious as
it's not.
As they push it to
no, it's not.
Right?
It's definitely not.
It's an agenda that they're pushing because they need an excuse, an alibi of some sort.
Oh, definitely
but it's
not.
being manipulated for other reasons. It's the same way when we look at business. The world powers are looking to conquer countries and looking to take authority over certain countries, and they do it in different ways. Through wars, through businesses. It's why the US-Africa Summit, which was concluded, the United States is trying to establish its foothold in, showing support to Africa, saying that they'll give over $55 million in the space of 3 years, right? So these powers are trying to exert dominance in Africa, but Africa must remember, why is everybody looking at you? Africa must come together within itself. The African leaders have to come together and look for how to prioritize its citizenry.
If they will. But of course, it's an extensive conversation. And, landmines, of course, have come from insurgencies, from wars, from civil wars that have gone on in these countries for a really, really long time. Once again, I wouldn't necessarily say it's, these insurgencies are funded by this country or that country or this person or the other, but they definitely are funded by somebody. There is someone who's behind some of all these things, and it's heartbreaking. Of course, unfortunately, it's citizens and it's the poor, it's the innocent people that get to suffer the consequences of these power struggles that we see across the continent and different parts of the world.
Right.
In a bit, you will start to hear, I'm very certain you'll start to hear of certain new uprisings in parts of the world that would be painted as people who are just frustrated with their government and they feel like they need to riot, but it's really not.
And that being said, we cannot but mention the fact that our hearts and our thoughts and prayers go out to those who lost loved ones in the landmine explosion, and we hope that they find a way to heal from this and we don't get to see a repeated incident.